Welcome to 360 Money Matters, where financial planners Billy and Andrew talk all things financial planning. This podcast aims to increase your knowledge and confidence with all things money. Each week, they will cover topics like wealth creation strategies, investment principles, creating passive income, paying off your debt faster, and much, much more, so you can live a life on your terms without limits.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the 360 Money Matters podcast. I am Billy and I'm joined by my co-host,
Andrew. Bills, we are back again for another podcast.
Back again, Andrew, and we are really close to Christmas this time. Can't believe I'm saying that.
Yeah. Don't get me started on how quickly this year has gone.
Exactly right, and this is why we're talking to our listeners today about all things Christmas and in particular Christmas shopping. And I guess not even just Christmas shopping, but the whole Christmas expense. And some tips and tricks about how we can manage that process to try and make sure that we don't overspend and wake up in January with a credit card hangover.
Yeah. Actually, I think that's kind of the big one in all of this. You've already given away one of the big tips that we're going to run through, which is not utilizing a credit card in this period. But yeah, you definitely don't want to be waking up with that kind of a hangover post-Christmas. The other one, maybe it's all right, but not that kind of hangover.
The traditional hangover, tick. Credit card hangover, no chance.
So there's a finance podcast and not a health podcast.
Well, we're trying to expand our listeners and our viewership, right? So, Andrew, take us into it. What's the first thing in terms of what we think about when we should be watching our pennies and what we're spending over Christmas?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's it always comes down to it. It always comes down to, this one sort of big, I don't want to say dirty because I think it's a positive word, but budget. Set a budget. Know what you're spending, know who you're buying for, know how much you're going to spend, and just set a budget on, okay, this is how much I expect that it's going to cost. That means that you've got something to stick to. You've got something where, you're not just spending, and all of a sudden expenses have gone through the roof, but set a budget.
Yeah. And stick to it.
Yeah, that's a natural follow-on from there.
Just in case that wasn't blatantly obvious.
Implied.
Yeah. That's definitely the key, and that's what we, I guess, always talk about. But that's always critical, not only around Christmas but all other times. One of the other things that I tend to think of, and actually this is what we do in our family personally, because I was in a position that unfortunately I'd set a budget and couldn't stick to it. Thank you, Samantha.
Do as I say, not as I do.
So if you've got a bit more time, so maybe this is one for next year, but basically we had a budget, worked backwards, and then worked out what do we need to do week in, week out, fortnight in, fortnight out, and basically started a Christmas gift saving account and then worked backwards from there.
Yeah. And you can double that in with just in general a gift account, right? Yeah. So more or less, whose birthdays are going to be, how much you probably spend on, gift giving per year. So you just, in your bucketing strategy, in your cash flow management tool, you have an amount that goes towards, gifts. You put an amount on a weekly basis, on a fortnightly basis, on however frequently you're distributing your cash flow, that goes towards a savings account, so that that you're never going to get caught out. There's always money there, it's available. That's what it's designed to be there for. And then when it comes to Christmas and you haven't depleted that account, it means that your family gets super lucky and gets amazing Christmas presents, or you've already depleted it throughout the year, and it means that no one's getting anything for Christmas.
That makes the whole thing simple. Just no gifts for everybody because I'm broke. There's the other Christmas tip that we were talking about. Spend all your money before Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
That one kind of rolls into kind of the next one about, and this one's really, really difficult, tracking what you're spending. So I don't know what it's like for you guys. We went to the shop. It was my wife's birthday over the weekend. So we went to the shops, and it's really easy just spending and going, I've forgotten about that person, or I've only got a small gift. I need to get something else. And before you know it, you've gone and overspent.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to try and track your spending, which kind of rolls into another tip that we've got about online and stuff, but we'll get to that in a sec. But if you are doing it, I guess the traditional way, where you are going to a bricks and mortar store, trying to have some mechanism around how much you've spent, then those other couple of things, having your budget and sticking to it, that's really, I think, challenging in the moment. So what I found works really well is you've always got your phone on you, just basically having your notes open and just typing in how much you've got, how much you've spent, or start with your budget in mind and then start subtracting those as you go so you know what you've got left.
Exactly right. So track your spending. I mean, comes back to, the implied point around the budget. There's no point setting a budget if you're just going to go around and do, whatever anyway. You need to track your expenditure. You need to track what you're doing, and you need to make sure that, whatever you're doing or whatever you're setting as the expectation, you're actually adhering to, because otherwise there's no point going through the exercise of doing a budget.
This is true.
So make sure that you're tracking your spending.
Yep. Andrew, what do we got next?
This one's massive, and we already spoke about it at the start of start of the podcast when we're talking about it and talking about not waking up with a hangover. Don't spend on credit. And I feel like I need to say this one 3 times. Don't spend on credit. Don't spend on credit. That's the absolute worst case scenario in this is you run out of money, you spend on the credit card because you don't want anyone to go without a gift, and all of a sudden you're paying for you're paying for your earlier sins over a period of time, as opposed to just accounting for it at the very beginning. Don't whether it's a credit card, whether it's a buy now pay later, whatever it is, don't spend on credit.
Both of those mechanisms give you the ability, and this is why we're against it, fundamentally speaking, in terms of credit cards and personal debt in particular. It gives you the ability to spend more than you earn. So for us, that's always our starting position, that we say no to that. This is just, I guess, the emotional pressure of Christmas, the time pressure of needing to get in and out of the shops, needing to get the right gift, and all of those, I guess, defense mechanisms that you've already got built in to try and help you say no. A lot of your defenses are lowered at Christmas. Everything seems like it's on sale. The music's blaring in the shops. There's a lot of people. It's easy to do, but 100%. So just Andrew's absolutely right. Just stay away from credit. That's key.
Yeah, and I think kind of the key to all of this stuff is really just being on top of it. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're prepared, if you know what you're doing, if you've got a plan of attack, then you're likely not to overspend and you're likely not to get yourself into hot water. But if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know how much you're spending, and you're just, continuing to, get along with the excitement. And I'm someone who absolutely loves Christmas. So for me, it's hard not to, get into the excitement of it all. But making sure that you're on top of it is really the key element in all of these, earlier things, and really anything that we're talking about in this.
Yeah. Starting early takes the pressure off, I think, because then it gives you the ability to go through, I'd say, the normal decision-making process around, okay, should I get that? Oh, no, it's too expensive. I'll sit on it. I'll sleep on it. As opposed to, oh, actually, I don't have enough time. Next weekend, we're out. We've got our Christmas party coming up, whatever it may be. So I'm just going to get that gift. I've overspent a little bit extra. It doesn't matter. I'm under time pressure. I have to get it. It took me ages to get a park. The place is full. All of those excuses come into it. But starting early removes, I guess, all of that, and removes all of that pressure, and helps you make better decisions when it comes to spending money.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, because one of the other ones that we've got is, shopping online as opposed to a bricks and mortar store. But if you're starting early and if you don't have that time pressure, you can do okay, I'm just going to jump online and, if I'm going to get someone a gift, it doesn't matter. I'm buying them that gift. It doesn't matter how much I'm spending. So I obviously want to spend as little as possible in order to, get that item for that person. So it gives you the time to jump online, do a comparison, and look at, hey, this is going to cost a quarter of the price if I end up purchasing it, somewhere else. Prime example, we were at a bookstore over the weekend, and my wife wanted to, buy a book for the little one. Not that she's reading yet; she's 4 months old, but genius child. She's reading. She's fluent.
For you to read it to her.
Yeah, exactly. And she jumped online, and it was literally a quarter of the price to go to Target, as opposed to buying it in a, bookstore that's all nice and looks pretty and all of that stuff. So being early on purchasing all of your gifts for Christmas means that you've got the time to, look online and actually wait for the delivery times to come in, which always get blown out sort of this time of year as well.
And on that same flavour, comparing prices. So obviously the ability, and they go hand in hand, shopping online, if you know the item, if you know the serial number or the description, you put it in, it's really easy to compare.
And there's some good apps about these days
Comparison
as well.
apps,
Yeah, you can actually even scan a barcode or take a picture of the item, and it'll actually do a search for, buying it somewhere either online or at a brick and mortar place that's nearby.
I'm sure all of the retail outlets love
they're hating us.
The bricks and mortar retail outlets hate us saying that, but no, that's the truth. I mean, with the supercomputer that we've got in our pockets, it's a lot easier to be able to do that than it has been traditionally in the past. And using your example, it's amazing how much of a difference it can make. Coming back to all of those things, being organised, making sure you've got time, doing it online, not being in a pressure environment, all of those things. So yeah, completely agree with that one. Andrew, I think with those ones, what we've summarised so far is a really good snapshot of how to necessarily control the spending that we're going to make. But I want to pivot now into what I think is a really good opportunity to try and actually spend less with some of our other ideas and tips and tricks that we've got, because setting a budget and saying, yep, this is how much I'm going to spend, I think we've ticked that box. What are some of the things that we can do to actually spend less?
Yeah. Look, this one sounds pretty, I don't know. When you use the word, it doesn't sound great, but in actuality, it's it's a fantastic way to not spend money, and it's also a fantastic way to still give someone a gift without having to, or if you can't afford to actually spend the money, and that's regifting. Yep. You consider getting something yourself that we've all had the thanks, really glad that you got me that, but you're not going to say it, but internally it's that's okay, but it's probably not what I would have gotten for myself. But someone that will appreciate something like that, fantastic, re-gift it on. You don't need to incur the expenditure, and it doesn't feel like you're just giving all your hand-me-downs, because it's just something that doesn't overly interest you, but may be of value to somebody else.
So, public service announcement: if any of Andrew's family or friends receive the vest that he's wearing for Christmas, then you know what's happened. But no,
Billy's talking about my vest because everyone in the office is hanging it on me, saying that I'm wearing an old man vest. So if you're not on YouTube,
30 over the weekend,
yeah,
right?
exactly. So that's probably why. I seem to think that it's a stylish vest, but if you're on a listening platform, jump on YouTube. There's a video attached, and we can all rate Andrew's vest as another way to bring down my self-esteem as everyone else in this office has.
So re-gifting, I like it. I think it's practical. It makes sense. Really love that idea. Secret Santa.
Yes.
That's another good one. That's a really easy way to limit the amount of presents that you're buying, because you're only buying it for one person. And when we've done it in our family before, what we've done is we've set a budget,
yep,
and that's the limit of the present that you can go up to. And that seems to be a lot more manageable from that perspective, because you may be spending a little bit more on a present for a cousin or something that you may not ordinarily spend that much on, but because you're only buying it once for one person, spending a touch more for one person as opposed to a whole heap of smaller amounts for everybody actually works out a lot cheaper as well too. And if you've got a little bit of a bigger budget, I think you can be a bit more thoughtful and kind of tailor what it is that you're purchasing to the person that's going to receive the gift.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, my wife's family, we've done that a few times, and we're actually doing that this year, and it just means that, rather than getting a few smaller gifts that you kind of like, but you probably ordinarily would have just bought that for yourself, over the course of the whole year anyway, you get one really nice gift that you probably would have never spent on yourself, but because you're not having to spend gifts for a whole heap of people, you're only spending it on one person. It means that you've got something that you can really appreciate.
Yep, makes sense.
Similar vein, but another alternative is, rather than giving a gift, you say, okay, we're all going to, spend some time together. So you think of a staycation. So, if there's a large group of people that all participate in, giving each other gifts throughout Christmas, you may decide, hey, let's go on a, family staycation. Let's all spend a weekend together at another time in the year, or even over Christmas.
Yep.
And actually go away and spend some time together, and put the amount of money that we would have ordinarily spent on gifts on accommodation for, a house to house everyone, or a family outing. We all go out for lunch or for dinner and, spend time together rather than actually spending money on a gift.
I love that idea. We did that a fair few years ago now, and I reckon it was one of the best Christmases that we've had as a family ever since I was a child.
Yeah.
It just was so good. We didn't have stuff that we were giving to people that it was kind of like, oh, that's great, I've got more stuff, where am I going to put it? I don't really like that, I've got to go to exchange it, whatever it may be. This was just a really good opportunity to get everybody to spend some good quality time together. It worked really, really well. So if that resonates with anybody, I'd really encourage it, because we did it a few years back, and definitely rate it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Another one, which is, look, I personally am an advocate for it, especially if you're in that situation, is set the expectation.
Yeah.
I think people try to, keep up with, I don't know whether it's shows or movies or, the expectation that was set before, but especially at the moment, and especially with everything that's going on at the moment, I would not have an issue if someone came to me and said, hey, do you mind if we let's cap the spend on Christmas spending to, a smaller amount, because, hey, interest rates have increased. Inflation is really high. The cost of living has, dramatically increased in a short period of time. Most people don't have an issue with having that open conversation. It's just no one wants to be the first person to talk about it. Yeah,
and I think it's, just having that conversation, and I think being the one to raise it, I think what you'll find is a lot of people resonate with that, simply because we are going through so much at the moment. And it kind of leads into my next point that I'll make around this. But I think it's almost actually people will be relieved by it.
Yeah.
And it could be, you don't need an excuse. You don't need to say, hey, I've got a holiday coming up next year, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. It's just, we don't want to get into a position where there's this unconscious buying of gifts and giving of gifts just because that's what you should be doing or what society is expecting us to do at this point of year. What I tend to think of, and Andrew laughed at me when I put this one on the list, but, and I don't mean to say it jokingly, but become an environmentalist. And let me clarify what I mean, right? So I've got 2 children, they're 12 and 9.
Yeah.
All of the stuff, and I mean 99% of what they've bought, what has been bought for them, what has been gifted to them, has probably ended up in, I don't want to say landfill because that's really bad, but it's probably ended up in recycling.
Yeah.
So the truth is, most of this stuff ends up in the same place over a period of time, except the really good quality keepsake things. We all understand that. But if you turn around to people and say, hey, this year our family are focusing on our impact on the environment, so we don't necessarily want gifts and plastic and stuff that's just going to be played with for 10 minutes and end up in recycling or landfill, I actually think people are going to resonate with that. And there's this really big, obviously, environmental push because of the climate crises that we've got, that everybody's a lot more focused on the impact that we're having on the planet. I actually think that's a really solid one, and I don't think it's that bad to bring that to the forefront. And I reckon if you do put that forward, people are going to be relieved by it and say, you know what, actually, you're right. Let's do it.
Provided that you're an environmentalist throughout the whole year, right? You can't just become an environmentalist over Christmas and just say, yeah, I'm an environmentalist, I'm not buying any
We're giving our viewers and listeners the opportunity to try and save money at Christmas. So maybe this is just when you start.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Exactly right. Yeah. Look, another one, and, brought it up a couple of times because, not that I want to say that that's all that Christmas is about, because obviously it's much more than that, but a lot of the times Christmas is about the kids. It's about, the joy of, children and opening gifts and all of that stuff that happens and surrounds Christmas throughout the year. So another one is setting the expectation, especially with family, we're only buying gifts for the kids. That's who's, getting the most joy out of it.
Yep.
And that's who's really, the whole idea of Christmas gifts more or less is really about children. So, doing that for a smaller group of people as opposed to, the entire family and friends is another option as well.
Yeah. And on that note, I guess the other thing is handmade gifts. if you're crafty, or consider secondhand.
Yeah.
With things like, I guess, Facebook Marketplace in particular, that's one that springs to mind. eBay is another one. It's really easy to try and get your hands on, secondhand stuff. Give it another opportunity for somebody else to have another go with. Give it another life.
And it doesn't end up in landfill.
Doesn't end up in landfill, and hopefully someone else gets to enjoy it. And that's pretty easy. Facebook in particular, I've sold a few things and bought a few things off there recently. That's been ridiculously easy. Just a few clicks on your phone and away you go. So that's also another option as well too.
Yeah, exactly right. And especially if you start early and, can plan ahead with all of this stuff, it means that you're not scrambling at the very last minute and,
overspending.
Yeah, overspending. It means that you've got some time to actually put some time, thought and effort into people's gifts as well.
Just while we're talking about this, there was one year that the Christmas buying drove me absolutely nuts. So I thought I'd get really crafty because I ended up going to the shops consistently, and they do this whole 24-hour shopping. I don't think they do that anymore, but it's late night shopping.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm not going to buy anything until Christmas Eve, because that way I'm going to go to the shops, I'm going to go in, I'm going to go out, I'm going to go hard because I don't have the choice. I can't get this wrong. And it worked really, really well. Stress levels were through the roof, but I ended up overspending.
Yeah, of course you did.
So conceptually, I had the right idea.
Knowing Billy and knowing what he's like, that sounds like something that you would do.
I did
and it sounds like an idea that you formulated in your head.
It's
like, yep, this is going to work. But yeah, I could see very quickly how you would get caught out with that.
I came undone.
Yeah. They the retailers definitely saw you coming on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure my family saw that too when they realised that the gifts that I bought them weren't really appropriate for them. So go figure. Andrew, what do you reckon? I reckon that ties off the list nicely.
Yeah, I think that's a good little wrap around, how you can limit how much you're spending, throughout this Christmas period, and still enjoy yourself and still enjoying all of the festivities as well. So Bills, thanks again for another podcast.
Thank you, and to our listeners and our viewers, if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out. Details are in the show notes, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for listening today. If you have any questions on what we've talked about or would like to have a chat about your money journey, visit us at 360fs.com.au.
Just a reminder to our listeners that the information contained in this podcast is general in nature and it is not intended as personal recommendations for the audience. Please consider whether the information suits your circumstances before acting on it. This information is provided by Billy Amiridis and Andrew Nicolaou of 360 Financial Strategists Pty Ltd, authorized representatives and credit representatives of AMP Financial Planning.